This.
What is the best
Is gonna be a good
and
one.
the worst competitive season? Obviously, you know, it's outside of Chapter 5 Season 3. Well, I ranked every single season
We're less than 10 seconds and we've already shit on Nitro season. I'm excited.
from Chapter 1 Season 6 all the way up till now, and based them on how good their meta was for the time.
Okay, how good the meta
was the season's tournaments, what tournaments were available, and what the prizing was, and finally, would this season be good now? If the next season you played was this all over again. I then added all of these
so we get rid of the nostalgia
and created the definitive list of what is the best and worst.
I'm excited.
I'm sure no one will ever disagree with this ever, because they never do.
Never.
So let's start things off with
Cook
Chapter
again.
1 Season 6, the first season that really had competitive.
I don't know what this meta was.
The meta, pretty horrific.
Yeah.
Heavy snipers, grenade launchers, quad launchers, rifts, traps, mounted turrets, you name it. All around pretty horrible. But enjoyment was really high for competitive because this was the beginnings of online tournaments. There were Alchemist and Scavenger pop-up cups, which essentially gave you no prizing.
I remember these.
They gave you a little pin.
I played in
if
this.
If you got to a certain point,
I may or may not have earned the pin.
Reward. Fun. But more importantly, there was the first Winter Royale online qualifiers. So this was actually a $1 million event. The finals of was held in the next season, but there was online qualifiers this season, and that was really the first time that this had been done. So because of that, I'm going to give it a 3 for the meta, an 8 for enjoyment, a 4 for tournaments, and then a 1 for would it be good now? Because no one would enjoy this now. Next season, Chapter 1 Season 7 was
Christmas
a generationally horrible meta, which had quad launchers, rocket launchers, grenades, boom boxes, which only lasted like a patch or two, but still, bottle rockets, rifts, hand cannons, P90s, grapplers. You could still carry 10 minis. There were sting grenades, planes, heavy snipers. I actually wrote rocket launchers twice. That's how many there was. And of course, to start things off,
this might be
also
2 out of
the
10.
Infinity Blade in there too. This is what I mean, a generationally bad meta. 1 out of 10 for meta, just in case you were wondering. And for tournaments, they ended up having more pop-up cups, kind of similar to what we had before.
The Architect.
But then there was the finals of the Winter Royale, which we already mentioned, which was the first big online event from memory, which was $1 million. We also started to test things like the first Trios Cups. There was the big Share the Love event, which was the first thing that Mongrel really ever won out there too. So overall, it was good, but 1 for meta. Not
mentioning the Architect pop-up cup is crazy. The best tournament of all time where you could edit opponents' builds. I think we should bring that back. Everyone loved it. It was great. It was not great. It was terrible. It was the worst tournament ever.
That was stinking it up. 9 for enjoyment because of all of the various reasons we mentioned. 4 for the tournaments because, you know, there were still no really good cash cups, but there was an improvement over the last season. And then a 1 for now as well. Next up is Chapter 1 Season 8. And this is a personal favorite of many people.
I love this season.
The meta was much better than the previous that we've seen so far. You know, it was like a pump attack meta, which was cool. Flint knocks were added.
Flint knock was awesome.
For good mobility.
Heavy sniper,
shadow bombs, launch pads, glider redeploy. There was some kind of frustrating things like heavy snipers, boogie bombs, the drum gun, a lot of explosives, you know, a real trend in Chapter 1. But there's also like the baller meta, which was kind of stupid looking at it, obviously, looking back. But in terms of some of the mobility items we've seen so far, it wasn't actually the worst.
Dude, look at this
still like spray them out and things like
It's 1 enemy and 5 ballers. Homie's getting gangbanged by hamster balls.
The tournaments this season were incredible.
Nothing you can do about it.
They started off with I can't speak. ESL Katowice Royale, which was one of the first big LAN events held by a third party, where basically everyone's drop spot got nuked like 2 days before as they were flying to the event, so all the NA players got like nothing. There's also a lot of big online events that were practicing for the World Cup qualifiers, which are like Scallywag Cup.
So stacked. Revscott, I see Revscott.
It was really good. And then of course the big ones was the first 4 weeks of the Fortnite World Cup was held here too. Also, this had a lot of bugs with the pirate cannons, which I've showed in a lot of videos already, and they are hilarious.
There's no way the cannon just bugged.
I'm going to tell you, this is going to get a good scoring. Meta, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10.
6 or 7.
You know, ballers, too many explosives and things like that. You know, not great. Enjoyment, I'm putting 9 out of 10. That's a 9 out of 10. It's World Cup
Tournaments has got to be like an 8 or a 9 as well.
Almost 10 out of 10. Tournaments,
10? 9 or 10? Yeah, nice.
Let's be real, this is like the best season of tournaments, especially with the prizing. And then the now, I put a 9 out of 10. Very high. But you can't tell me if you went back to this season, even though the meta's a little questionable, with all these tournaments, you would love it. So very highly rated.
I think we have to remember, it's hard to sum up in this video. I think what we have to remember about the early metas, though, is the meds were terrible. You left spawn with like 3 bandages and 1 mini and 150 shield. Like, I think if we went back to any of these metas, people would complain because we're all used to being so stacked now. But still, I think it's kind of hard to count that because that's every meta in Chapter 1. There was just no meds.
on Season 8. And of course, Chapter 1, Season 9 is going to be really similar to that. But I will say the meta this season was significantly
World
worse.
Cup season, right?
Predominantly due to the addition of the combat shotgun
yeah.
and the legendary and epic tactical shotgun. Now, if you know anything about that tac, I hate it. It's really stupid. And it was even worse back then. And the pre-nerf combat shotgun was also incredibly powerful.
So OP.
The drum shotgun was also added this season, and on release, it was horrifically overpowered too. So the
Every
meta,
fast
a lot
shotgun
worse,
is.
but this also
it's got
still had
laser
weeks
beam
5 to
fragging
10 of
out.
the Fortnite World Cup qualifiers,
No offense, Landon.
plus the World Cup finals. The map was one of the best ever, with places like Neo Tilted, Mega Mall,
map
lots of
was
diversity
sick.
across
This map
the
was
map.
really cool.
Map mobility with the slipstreams. I put a 3 for the meta. That's fair. The meta was awful.
Okay.
10 for enjoyment. 10 for tournaments, and a 9 for now. If this was the season you were offered with all this money in the World Cup qualifiers, you would love this.
Okay, we're talking about all this money. I was about to say, bro. Okay, so if we went back to this now, it'd just be carried by the prize pool, which honestly is kind of true, probably.
One Season X. I've put so many videos of mechs on this channel, but I guess this is just going to be another one now. Not only did this season have the mechs in the meta for most of it, it was kind of nerfed a lot towards the end, but it took way too long. We're just going to count the mechs as in the full season. There's also rift zones, which were incredibly annoying, like Tilted Town, the area where you just
forgot this existed.
Retail Row, which was incredibly powerful.
We actually had no builds before we even realized there was no builds. Tilted Town was so bad.
Pretty much defined all of FNCS, where you had the cube monsters and it was incredibly overpowered. There was Taco Time in Greasy Grove. Like, what were they thinking? Where you would just start dancing randomly
Taco
in the middle
Time
if
was
you walked
sick.
into a POI. Funny clips from that season. Horrific map. Horrific meta. Well, the map was actually kind of cool now.
Not being able to crouch inside a POI.
It was back to like pump tac, which, if you know, is one of my favorites. But meta, horrific. Now, this gets another massive bump up for the tournaments here, because they were insane. The FNCS, this is kind of the first season where it actually was hosted.
So much money.
On Season X, and the prizing was literally insane. Like, if you won a week of the qualifiers, of which, by the way, there were 5 qualifier weeks, goated, you'd earn $96,000 on EU. That's $32,000 per player because it's in trios. And if you win grands, it was $480,000. That's $160,000 per person, which was truly insane. And even outside of that, solo cash cups and trio cash cups were also nuts too. There was 2 solo cash cups a week, and if you won one, it was either 2.5k or 7k, depending on which one there was, and you could play both.
7.5k
then there was a trio
winning
cash
one
cup as well, and if you won that, it was $18,000 to the winning team. So money this season.
To be fair, right now we have $12,000 for the win in the trio cash cup, but obviously the rest is kind of crazy too. But
tournaments went crazy, and as a note, I put they introduced the Middle East region. So meta 3
I was like,
10.
whoa, where are we going with this? I was like, damn, we're about to torch a whole region? No, okay, never mind.
This was a solid
3
3
meta?
out of 10 meta.
Yeah.
You know, mechs, all that
mech,
stuff.
yeah.
Enjoyment, I put 2. I think that's generous. Because this season, you know, with the mechs and all that enjoyment, most people really hated a lot of this season.
Yeah, that's fair.
Tournaments, though, 10 out of 10. No doubt is 10 out of 10. Now, would people enjoy this now?
No.
I put a 5 out of 10. I feel like people could put up with these mechs and the Rift Zone meta if you had these prizing back. So I've gone with a 5.
Dude, that is crazy. Do we actually think that you would put up with mechs, like actual mechs, because the prize pool's higher, knowing that 99.9% of players don't get that prize money anyway? Like, let's be real. Be real with yourself. You're queuing up in a solo cash cup with mechs, but you know a pro player who's not even you has a chance to make 20 grand more. I don't think, no. I'm sorry, no. I'm disagreeing with that one. Earnings only carry so hard. It was literally mechs, bro. Mechs. Chat, mechs. We're forgetting how much mechs killed the game. Mechs. Sorry.
Maybe that's a little low. I think it was pretty good myself. Moving on to Chapter 2, Season 1. Now, this was kind of a blank state for not only competitive, but for the base game anyway. So the meta was incredibly simple. You basically just had like an AR, burst AR, the heavy assault rifle, and then the shotguns were like tack and pump. You know, you had some ancillary weapons like the SMG pistol sniper. And then it was just launch pads for mobility, and you had rocket launchers.
And grenade stacking.
With grenades in, but they were all broken because you could grenade strat off them, so they ended up getting removed. But there was no mobility. I put launch pads. There was no mobility. I lied about launch pads. Sorry. So yeah, really blank state meta, but it was a squad season. So no mobility
I didn't remember launch
actually
pads.
Makes a lot of sense combining these two together.
This meta was terrible.
Map enjoyment was pretty high. It did also introduce the first platform cash cups, so it's split between PC and console. So you had basic and mobile as well. So depending on whatever you wanted to play, you had some sort of tournament, and the prizing was obviously very, very.
Has Homie got gigantic hands, or controller's gotten bigger? Like, why does it look like he's holding on to like something you get out of a fucking cereal box? That doesn't look like like his hands are gigantic, no?
Scene as well. For some
Sorry.
reason, we didn't actually.
Oh, you can't see. Oh, sorry. You guys can't see that. Sorry. Homie's got giganto hands, no?
And mobile as well. So
Some
it
big
depended on
old
whatever
hands.
you wanted to play. You had some sort of tournament, and the pricing was obviously.
They just don't play controller, but like I swear they're not that small.
We didn't actually run squad cash cups. Like, it was a squads mode for FNCS, but it didn't run squad cash cups. It made absolutely no sense. There was also still 4 weekly qualifiers. You had heats, you had grands for FNCS, and then there was also the DreamHack Winterland. So, you know, for competitive,
DreamHack was
we
so
were
good.
swimming in it. Got
Yeah.
even better, of course, when it came to December time, and for some reason, Epic Games decided to throw $23 million into a dual Winter Royale. So I put 9 for tournaments. Hold on. This is a 10. Sorry. I've changed it to 10 out of 10.
10,
How could I do
definitely.
that? The problem with this season a little bit, which will bring down our enjoyment score, was squads is boring. It's boring to watch. It's also boring to play. It's hard to find teammates with, and especially back then.
Yep.
And on top of that, the season was the longest season of
So
all time. It was
long. The box fight
127
meta.
days. So basically, after FNCS ended, there was like 2.5 months of just solo cash
Just
cups.
box fights.
So people were kind of starting to lose their mind a little bit in there. But
Yeah.
you know, the season introduced a lot of also really interesting things: boats, fishing, swimming, 100% chest spawns as well, alongside harpoons. So there's a lot of really good stuff this season. So for meta, 9 out of 10. No mobility, super solid.
What?
Fishing, 100% chest spawns. Like,
Dude,
you know,
me and Reese have like we I feel like we were going together at one point, and now we've just kind of separated. We're going our own ways. I don't know, man. He really likes the boring metas. He really likes just no excitement metas, like nothing in it whatsoever.
really can't complain about the meta. Enjoyment, I
Wow.
put 6 because it was kind of a boring. I feel like this is like a season where people look back at it and they're like, oh, this was really great. It was really fun.
No,
But in
I
the
don't think we
moment,
do
it
look
was
back
so
like it was
long
fun.
that it just ended up like really dragging on and being kind of boring. Tournaments, 10 out of 10. 3 seasons in a row where I put 4 seasons in a row where I put 10 out of 10 tournaments.
But we
you
literally
can't
just
not have
admitted that it was 2 months of nothing but solo cash cups. I don't really know if that can be a 10 out of 10. Like, it was so boring. We literally had pros doing box fights for 12 hours a day because there was nothing else to do. I don't know. I'm disagreeing on the Chapter 2 Season 1 so far. This is the biggest disagreement I've had. I'm putting this way lower on every metric.
10 out of 10 tournament with a $23 million Winter Royale in there too. Now I've put 9 out of 10 as well because, let's be real, anyone would go back to play that Winter Royale for just the free cash that was there. Same with having that meta. This is aged incredibly well in my opinion, outside of the enjoyment at the time, which wasn't very good.
I guess
Alright,
Winter Royale is
controversial one.
fully
Chapter
carrying,
2,
apparently.
Season 2. Now, if you're a casual player, maybe you didn't play a lot back then for tournaments, but this season was
dailies.
very hit or miss. If you were a casual player, you loved it. If you were a pro player, you also probably loved it.
If you were
the
on controller.
average competitive player,
If you were
this
on
season
controller.
was kind of very frustrating. So this is the first season that really introduced mythics into the game, like consistently. And it was basically a season where you get mythics or you die to mythics. You know, you had things like the Midas's drum gun, which is incredibly broken. The Sky's assault rifle, which still had 2 times headshot multiplier, so you could just instantly die to it. There was like a kaboom bow. There was
forgot about the
Brutus's
boom bow.
minigun, which basically aqua conditioned the whole lobby from. There was a minigun meta where there was other miniguns.
Reisshub
all
was
just
playing
lying
the season
around.
on
You could take
controller,
those
right?
remote explosives, heavy sniper. So
Is he still
the
on controller
meta
at this
was
point?
not good unless you had a mythic already. So it kind of introduced that idea of mythic drop spots, which I still am not that fan of today. Now the map was really good though.
I think
They
he
just
was
added a lot
controller
to
at
it.
this
It
point.
basically just became very additive to the season before, where season 1 was a blank slate and then they just added a bunch to the map. And tournaments this season were also incredibly good. This
Tournaments
is
were
one of
so
the best
good.
tournament seasons purely because we had daily cups. You know, didn't really give you much prizing, but essentially
Dailies
you
were
got
just
a little
something
bit
to
of
do
prizing just for
constantly.
winning the tournament. There was also the first season which had console FNCS, which wasn't good for FNCS by any means because they did no broadcast. They did nothing about it. They just split the prize pool up. But
Yeah,
it was good
that
for
was
the
a bit
console
weird.
players. And there's also the first 2-round cash cups. So this is kind of where that begun back in February 2020, long time ago. On top of that, we had 2 FNCSs. We had the first dual
that's
FNCS,
right. This is why I
which
always
had
get
4 weekly
confused. It was
qualifiers.
duos and
And then there was
solos
still the solo FNCS
same
Invitational
season.
as well. So
Huge.
I mean, 10 out of 10.
That'll
Actually,
be
another 10 out of 10,
10 out of
tournament
10.
season, now that I think about it. Really, really good. Lots of nostalgia this season. People love it, but controller players were absolutely insane this season because of the new settings. So that also is pulling our meta down. So for meta, I'm giving it a 5. Not that highest. Enjoyment,
We gave Chapter 2 Season 1 a 9, and we're giving Chapter 2 Season 2 a 5. I don't know, man.
I'm gonna 8 because a lot of people enjoyed the time, but it was, you know, because it's a lot of people's favorite season, but I didn't enjoy it that much. Maybe my personal bias. Tournaments, 10. Again, I'm just giving 10 for everything. Maybe for these tournaments, maybe I need to start reducing that. But there was 2 FNCSs. Come on,
Two FNCS is pretty big, and dailies.
Now I've given it a 6. Chapter 2, Season 3. Now this is one of my favorite seasons of all time. It had a super unique map that had a lot of water around it to really like showcase the new swimming mechanics. But it was another season which was kind of dominated by Mythics again. They were a little bit more balanced than the previous one, but Catty Corner in particular was just
so
like far too strong. You essentially had 18 shockwaves in the launcher, assuming that your teammates didn't also have rockets, so one person could carry 18 shockwaves, and everyone else just had like launch pads or crash pads. So this made it really unfair and unbalanced.
The storyline this season got so boring. I vividly remember this season. Like literally, we were talking about who's going to win a tournament. It was just whoever gets the caddy launcher. It was the most we've ever had one item just define who's going to win everything. Like it was so overpowered.
One really strong drop spot. Outside of that, I really like the meta with the shotguns. Like attack and charge is a really good combination.
A lot of people hated it,
also made a really good change in reducing headshot damage from 2 times to 1.5 times. So it
was up there with Grim Gatecoin. Yeah, actually, I think it was worse than Grim Gatecoin. I think caddy launcher was worse than Grim Gatecoin, and I truly think if you went back, you'd realize you could just jump in the zone, jump back in, jump height, shoot out height, caddy launcher height off, take height, caddy launcher low, go in the zone, jump back out of zone. Like you just were him. You could go wherever you wanted, even more so than the Gatekeeper. And you could launch other people out. It was just crazy.
I liked it a lot more than the previous season's meta, but it was okay. It was okay. Tournaments were really good though. This is the first time that DreamHack hosted a solo DreamHack online event, like a big event that people can play. Please, can we have these back? They were amazing. Big prize pools, you know, basically a couple rounds. It was kind of like a mini solo FNCS.
I think it was crash pads.
But speaking of solo
everyone else
FNCS,
had crash pads, but you had shockwave launcher.
FNCS this season, but there was a solo FNCS last season. And we had 2 weekly solo cash cups, and there was the solo DreamHacks. So basically everything was solos this season. If you know me, I love solos. There was too much solos this season. Everything was solos. On top of that, for the FNCS, they crammed 4 qualifiers into 2 weeks.
Yeah,
so it was like you'd play
terrible.
9 hours on a Saturday and a Sunday, both weeks in a row, which, you know...
Of solos. Like... Dude, oh my God, that schedule
in 9 hours
of solos is just insane. Like pros were actually losing their minds. I genuinely remember watching jumping around. There was a clip of me watching like Ron, and then I jumped to someone else, and pros were like actually going insane.
Saturday and a Sunday, both weeks in a row, which, you know, that was a lot. So tournaments, you know, all solos. Why were sharks in this season as well? It hurts me, but I think the meta here is a 7, which it was reasonably good.
Okay.
Catty launcher was a bit broken. Enjoyment, I'm putting 5 because of all the solo tournaments. Tournaments, 5, and now I would say probably 6 because there was a lot of events that people would enjoy now, but at the time it was just there was so much solos before it and then during it as well. It pains me to put that so low because it is one of my favorite seasons, I will say. Chapter 2, Season
here we go.
4.
Here we go.
Season, baby. This is a big one. Now, they really made a good effort this season. I think this is the first time that Epic realized that mythics were becoming a bit of a problem. So they did keep a huge percentage of the mythics out of the loot pool, which is amazing. The only ones that really stayed in were Dr. Doom's Arcane Gauntlets.
This wasn't that
and they
good.
Were, like,
these were
kind of mid. Anyway, so it wasn't really that bad.
The ball
this
was
season,
crazy.
Fishing was incredibly powerful because they just introduced shieldfish and jellyfish and all those kind of things. And there were spicy fish, I think, as well. So there was good mobility. So fishing became really strong. There was also really good map mobility where there was a lot of rifts but a bit too many mobility items like shockwaves and things like that. I do think this meta maybe would have been a little bit worse had it not been for Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson like dominating it and making it such a special season. But let's be real, the actual shotgun meta was really good because it was very easy to get yourself a gold pump. You could just 50-50 land on a Stark chest. You'd get good loot from it. You get good shields. For tournaments, this season became a little worse than the previous because the qualifiers were reduced down to 3.
Yeah, 3 qualifiers.
And prize money was removed from those qualifiers as well.
Yeah,
they did the
that
reboot
was
round,
not
which was super hype.
Reboot round, amazing.
There was still a lot of good money for winning FNCS, but the prize pool was still split between console and PC. So it kind of made it so the winning teams didn't get anywhere near as much as they would historically. Like it was $111,000 for winning, which is 37k each on EU, which is the biggest. Now it's even it's like 100k or something. I can't remember now.
Mongrel really did earn during that prize pool is terrible. 111 grand split. That's worse than the FNCS winning prize pool now. I didn't realize it was that low.
which is the biggest. Now it's even it's like 100k or something.
Yeah, really low on
They did
EU.
add monthly DreamHack solos, which was pretty awesome.
I saw the
For
price pool was
meta,
still good at this
I'm gonna
point.
give this an 8. Being able to get gold pumps and stuff and just one pump everyone was fun. Enjoyment, it's got to be a 9.
9,
Gotta
yeah,
love
it's
landing
got-
on a start chest.
Yeah, it's gotta
Tournaments,
be
I would
high
change
up.
that to like maybe a 7, I would say. And
6
now,
maybe even?
I think a lot of people would still enjoy this meta if you went back to it.
People
so
would
I'm
love
gonna give
this meta if we went
maybe
back.
an 8 as well. Chapter 2, Season
Okay.
5. Now, this is where competitive
Strong season.
almost peaked. There was like 800,000 people watching the broadcast for FNCS Grand Finals here, which was really, really incredible. And I had a very interesting shotgun meta that did not involve pump for once, which usually I don't like. But there was the Dragon's Breath shotgun, the charge, the tack, and the lever. And
Lot
at
of
the time,
shotguns.
crazy enough, the lever didn't even feel that bad because all of the other shotguns had like negatives to them. I love a charge shotgun, I would say as well. But there was no launch pads. There was just bouncers for mobility. You had kind of sand tunneling gimmicks.
Was
which
the
is a bit
viewership
rubbish.
really that
Incredibly
high?
balanced season. This is probably one of the best metas we've had and just one of the best balanced. But also it had some of the best tournaments. Now this is the year following the Winter Royale. So this one hosted the $5 million Frosty Frenzy. Bit down from the previous year's
Yeah.
$23 million, but a $5
I feel
million.
like that really went under the radar because since it was so much less than last Winter Royale, kids were complaining about a $5 million single tournament for like a few days. Like, it's crazy looking back that was like terrible.
Dollar where you just give away money is kind of insane for tournaments to start with, obviously. But I did have a bit of a problem when it came to FNCS because this is again the second season where they've removed qualifier money from FNCS.
Yeah.
So people weren't really trying that hard because there was
Show
no
the
reason to.
Kinetic
The
clip.
top teams, essentially, if you had a good week 1 and maybe done okay in week 2, there was no reason to try in week 3. So there was a lot of griefing.
There was
that
a
went
lot of
on in this
griefing.
season. So, and a lot of trolling and things like that, which was kind of annoying. So FNCS actually ended up being good in the grands, but a lot of the weeks did not end up being
that's
that
fair.
good. But there was a lot of fun tournaments here, like
Oh my
the
God.
Laser and Fresh's
This was
Super
so good.
Knockback event. I can't remember.
Such
They
a
were
good
testing
tourney.
like arena box fighting, and there were some other throwback tournaments in creative that were
That
also
Fresh
really
Laser Beam
nice.
tourney was
This is something
so
a lot
good.
Like Fortnite modern tournaments are missing. There's not like a lot of creativity in a lot of them, so they really tried to test a lot of new things this season. So really good.
Did he just win with the mythic
8,
goldfish?
Enjoyment 8, tournaments 8. Now I think I'm gonna give it an 8 across the board on everything there.
Yeah,
Chapter 2
okay.
season
I
5
love
was
this
a really
season.
good competitive season in my eyes. Chapter 2 season 6.
Primal season, baby.
Makeshift weapons you craft at the primal.
You have to break Primal season up into the start of Primal season, the end of Primal season, though, which I don't think he's going to do because it takes way too much time. But this season was so good at the end, but so bad at the start, and I will die on that hill. The best developing Epic has ever done in Fortnite history. We started with like a 2 and ended on like a solid 6 or 7. Like, it was genuinely crazy.
Primal shotgun being super stupid. The crafting, generally, actually, the crafting mechanic was just kind of slow and annoying. Just give me a good gun. I don't want to have to
But
craft
by the end it
into
was.
something better.
It got
than
buffed
that.
like
Give
4
me the pump.
times.
It was
It's
cool. You
me.
could always get like a good pump.
Why
if
is
you
it
found
me?
like a blue makeshift, you could craft it up. That was fine.
I made the
There was
video.
like some sort of trajectory and
couldn't see
loot
me
paths
there.
you could take for that, but it was just kind of boring. Snipers were kind of like bows, which was actually incredibly powerful, whereas you could just do like a 212 headshot damage with mechanical bow,
really
which is
strong.
really, really strong. And despite the primal shotgun being like really broken on release, it did get nerfed considerably, so it wasn't
Massively.
that bad. There was a lot of stink floppers, which were
I forgot
incompetitive, and
these
for some
existed,
reason there
though.
was no metal in the entire middle of the map, and we had raptors in cash cups. Why? Please tell me why. In 2021, tournaments were pretty much the
Why?
same every single season, but obviously this one did not have the $5 million Frosty Frenzy. So this meta, that's a 5 meta. I'm being generous by saying 5 for Primal
End of the season, yeah,
Enjoyment,
start of the season, no.
3. Nobody enjoyed Primal Season. If you did, you are lying right now. You have rose-tinted goggles on, or glasses, whatever it's called. Tournaments, it was kind of similar to this previous season, but without Frosty Frenzy, so I'm giving that a 6.
Yeah.
And now, 3. Unsurprisingly.
But like at the end of Primal, you could literally land, get a makeshift that wasn't terrible because they buffed it like 3 times. You would then instantly get metal parts, which was so easy to get by the end of the tournament. You'd make a spaz. Like, I swear the end of Primal, if you were good, people actually enjoyed it. This is when like Bucky's stream exploded because people enjoyed ranked at the time, or arena, whatever it was. But you would just jump in, get a spaz, and start one pumping kids. Like, it was genuinely okay at the end.
I do not like Primal Season. Chapter 2, Season 7. This is the alien-themed one. Now, the map changes this season were
I
pretty
can't
much
remember this
non-existent.
season that well.
Every single season, people were asking, please, can we have, like, bigger map changes?
It's me again. This is when I was known as the guy who was hating on map changes, dude. Like, every new season would launch, kids would jump into my stream to flame me for the map not changing. Like, I became the map change guy, and I don't think that was a good thing. It made me look salty and just mad all the time.
And then they just changed the center of the map instead, which was kind of frustrating.
It was
A lot of
very
POIs
annoying.
also got worse this season because of like the alien abduction theme. The launch pads came back. But one of the most annoying things that were in the game for the most season, or for
Alien
most of the
heads.
season, was the
So you couldn't
alien
get one
parasites,
pumped.
which basically stood on your head, and if you shot them, it just negated any headshot damage, and they allowed you to, like, I think sprint a little faster, but
You
jump a
could
little
jump or
higher as well.
something, yeah.
Fighting someone with an alien parasite on your head was so frustrating. But I will say, for solo
This
cast
item was
the
awesome.
item, the inflatable that
Bring
they
it
added,
back.
was one of the best mobility items of all time.
And
It was super, super balanced.
Never seen it
and
come
I
back.
wish it would bring it back, to be honest with you. Meta, it was really balanced, to be honest with you. Most of the like shotgun and AR meta was really balanced, but because of the parasites, I'm going to bring it down to like a 7 overall. I would say.
7's
Enjoyment,
generous, honestly.
Most people thought this was relatively okay. It's getting a 6. Tournaments, it had 2 FNCSs.
Yeah, the double
Solo
trio
All-Star
FNCS.
Showdown
Oh, wait.
and trio FNCS.
This wasn't double
so we're
trio.
bumping
Yeah.
that boy up to an 8.
Yeah.
9. I think I meant to say the word now, but I just said 9. I think a lot of people would be really fine if this meta came back now, so I'm also giving this
Yeah.
a 7. And the final
Kinda
season
fair.
of Chapter 2 was Chapter 2 Season 8.
Grand Royale.
Now, this was...
This better be at least a 9 for tournaments, Reese. It better be at least a 9 for tournaments. Double trio FNCS, Grand Royale shit was crazy. It better be.
boring. Hold with me, because it was felt pretty much the same as like
Yeah,
the
it was
previous
very
few
similar to
seasons.
the last
A lot
season.
of the final seasons in Chapter 2, I think, were impacted by COVID, where not much really just
Not much
changed,
changed.
and that same map had
Very
pretty much been
similar.
played for 2 years solid. The meta was pretty good, actually. The orange new crash sites were pretty
added
good.
a lot of-
Sideways areas were a good way to get
a lot of
ammo,
loot to the map.
But Shadow Floppers kind of ruined the vast majority of the
This
seasons,
was
like
so
solo
dumb,
cash cups,
just
duo
flying
cash
into
cups, and
the
like early
sky.
FNCS meta as well. Tournaments. Now, this had some seriously good tournaments, because
Yeah.
there was late game cups are in here. There was the monthly
late
Dream
game
Hack,
as
there was
well,
Cash Cup
and
Extra
Dream-
that were added if you
That's a
did
10 out of
good in
10.
the original Trio Cash Cup. There was Trio FNCS, and there was the Grand
Grand Royale.
Royale, which
10
was
out of
like
10.
what would turn into the end of year LAN in there too. Unfortunately, you know, the FNCS format had 12 reboot rounds, which was awful, and Grand Royale had 32.
Royale
You
was
basically had to win one of
32
32
reboot
games
rounds.
to get into the grand finals, which was truly horrific.
Oh
But they
my
did start adding
God.
things like community cups for skins in this moment for the FNCS skin in particular, so it was pretty good. They also added the first console championship cup, which was basically like the first big console cup since they removed console FNCS, which I forgot to mention earlier on. Meta, I'm giving this an 8, not a 5 actually. The Shadow Floppers basically pulled this down considerably.
Yeah.
Enjoyment, I'm giving this a 6 because it felt rather repetitive from the past few seasons that were before it, and there was not a lot of hype or like things like the Grand
Tournaments 10.
Royale. Tournaments 8 because there was incredible tournaments, and now I'm gonna give this an 8.
We were given like 10s like nothing before. Reese, consistency, mate. Come on.
As well. I think people would really I'm giving it a 9.
Yeah, I think we would
people
really like this
enjoy
season
going
now.
back and playing this season. I think really one of the only main issues was the Shadow Floppers. Chapter 3 Season 1. This is gonna be another one which will probably be controversial to the casual viewers out there. This season was not good competitively. It was very good
Double
casually because a
SMG.
lot of people loved the skins, the collabs. But this is a competitive breakdown, and those things don't matter for competitive. Now, the Spider-Man's web shooters were
Actually
originally
good.
incredibly broken for competitive, where they had 80 uses.
Yeah, they
but
ended up
actually
good with
got
20
nerfed
though.
down to 10 uses.
Oh, 10
only in
was it?
competitive, which was actually really
was
good,
20.
and it became very good mobility to use. You had to think, when am I going to use these 10 uses? At what point in the game should I use them? Early, mid, end game, and don't want to waste them. So they actually became a really good item for competitive. The worst part about this was just the meta was horrific this season. The striker pump
Yeah,
shotgun
the
that was
pumps were
added
just
was
too
too weak because it hadn't been buffed yet. So most players ended up just running the Stinger SMG and an MK7. Now, the MK7 assault rifle
OP.
basically was not balanced whatsoever because this is Epic's really first push into a lot of first-person weapons when you aim down sights, and there was no bullet drop-off or anything, so you could just shred people with the
Oh my
MK7.
God, it
And then
felt
the
so
Stinger
good to do,
SMG was
though.
so strong in box, there was just no need to take a shotgun. So the fighting meta was really, really bad. However, this season for tournaments did start the theme of actually just having one main cash cup for the main game mode, which is duos, and then one solo cash cup in a week, which was great. They did unfortunately run out of time this season, which meant that they only had 2 FNCS qualifiers.
Oh,
which
really?
we just had this year, and it sucks. Meta, you're getting a solid 3
Yeah,
out
only
of
2
10.
qualifiers
Sorry.
is awful.
Enjoyment, new chapter, but meta was frustrating. I'm giving that a 4. Tournaments, mid 4. And now I don't think people would enjoy playing this meta whatsoever, so I'm
Yeah.
also going to give it a 4.
Dude, if this is Chapter 3 Season 1, usually held by many as the best season, bro, Chapter 3 Season 2 and 3, we're about to get some stinkers. We're about to get some 1s and 2s. Unless Reese pulls out a weird, like, I like this season, which I don't know. He likes some pretty weird plain seasons, so maybe.
Pretty low on the rankings. I know the casuals are mad, sorry. Chapter 3 Season 2 added a couple of really important things. Zero build, which for tournaments was incredibly important for keeping the cheaters out of build mode. Added mantling and sprinting. I also forgot to mention sliding was in the previous season
Yo,
too.
shout out Zero Builds for taking all the cheaters. We love you. Thank you so much.
And the meta felt a little bit better because the striker pump had been buffed, so now it felt a little bit more usable. It was a launchpad meta overall, but to be honest, nothing really interesting happened in Chapter 3 generally, which is why comp had such bad viewership and the game was kind of not that interesting in Chapter 3 generally. Meta, I'm giving this a 5.
Wow, we summed that up
striker
quick.
pump buff, sprinting added. It was pretty good. Enjoyment, I'm going to also give it a 5. People were kind of bored of not really interested in Chapter 3 generally. Tournaments, I'm giving it a 6 because Zero Build was added, which added another depth to the seasons. And now, I think if you took this again, I think people wouldn't really enjoy that much. So I'm going to give it a 5.
Chapter 3 Season 2 getting like double the score of Chapter 3 Season 1. That is bold. Very bold. Not double, but higher. Wow, that's bold.
Now, Chapter 3 Season 3 was very similar to Chapter 3 Season 2.
Boring.
Outside of the fact that I had the grapple glove, which is just basically about...
If I put a gun to your head, not that I would, YouTube, Twitch, don't ban me, but theoretically in Minecraft, and I asked you what was Chapter 3 Season 3, you could not tell me. You can't pretend you could tell me. If I asked you what Chapter 3 Season 3 was, Life on the Line, 95 people out of 100 at least are gone. It's the most forgettable season in the history of seasons.
Spider-Man's web shooter again, but they did vault the combat SMG, which was really broken in the previous season. So I'm gonna give this a 6 for the meta, maybe a 7. Nah, 6. I'll give it a 6. Enjoyment, again, mid. 5.
He's
tournaments 6.
powering through Chapter 3, and I don't blame him.
And now I'm just gonna give it a 5 again.
He doesn't even care. He's like, I don't care.
Season,
Chapter 3 is
slightly
just
better meta. But
just
Chapter 3 Season
Chapter
4,
3.
that season was very different from meta, and just tournaments, everything was really different there. So for the meta, this was where they changed up the shotguns a lot, and they actually used the prime shotgun, which a lot of people loved because it did
Hammer
more
AR
damage
too.
with the first shot in the magazine, wherever it is. Now, this is a bit of a gimmick, so I'm not that fan of it, but they also had things like the Ranger
I didn't
shotgun,
mind the Ranger
which
shotgun.
again is a bit of a gimmick in this one shot, but if you actually watch back from some of the tournaments, there was a lot of variety in which shotguns people decided to run.
Yeah, the
this
loophole
season.
variety was
Launchpads
nice.
were also turned into an item, and a throwable item at that, so they weren't just like a free guaranteed pickup. You had to think about if you're going to choose them or not. So meta, I actually really
I
liked
didn't mind
the
this
Chapter
one.
3 Season 4 meta. Tournaments though, now the tournaments hosted were incredible. There was no FNCS online, but was the first LAN back, which was the FNCS Invitational, which was really good. But rather than running cash cups and all these kind of things that they normally would, they run divisional cups, which was a kind of ranked system where you could kind of go up to different ranks. You entered different tournaments depending on where you placed in the previous one. This is something I actually hope they really add back, but there was also late game cups which are added, which did not work at all. They were bugged,
they were
but
terrible.
they were fun when they did for like the one event I was able to try, and it was good. So meta, 7 out of 10. I think that's good. Enjoyment, I think a lot of people really enjoyed this season. I did too. 8 out of 10. Tournaments, amazing tournaments. I'm giving you an 8 out of 10. Prizing wasn't always as incredible as some of the older ones.
They only had land though.
Now, if we went back, I think people would really enjoy this season, so I'm also giving that an 8. So highly rating Chapter 3 Season 4. Who would have...
Wow, Chapter 3 Season 4 got a good rating. I think that just beat Chapter 2 Season 4. Bold.
thought. Not me anyway. Chapter 4, Season 1. A new chapter all around.
Chapter 4, this is a tough one. I love Chapter 4.
Hammer season. Now, I think the Shockwave Hammer was so incredibly annoying.
So
and it was
good!
an infinite Shockwave. Like, it was really interesting this season.
Reese hates
where
fun.
Shockwave
Confirmed.
Hammer was in competitive. But the shockwaves themselves, which were not infinite shockwaves, were held out of competitive. The Red Eye Assault Rifle was also like one of the least skillful
OP.
ARs
This
ever.
thing was so
It was
broken.
far too easy to hit massive damage with this thing, so I wasn't a massive fan of the actual meta this season at all. But they did add the most useless movement mechanic, which was hurdling, which just never works properly still
out
to this
hurdling.
date. But they did add reality augments, which I thought were a really good addition to the game. Tournaments
season was so
hit the divisional
good.
cups, which was really cool, but they also introduced the solo victory cash cups this time, and it had a
We had to
10
get
game
Muzz in
final if you
there.
never played them back then, which was really, really good. But one of the bad things that happened in Chapter 4 Season 1 was that they added the region lock. So you could not play multiple regions
that
of
was
cash
bad.
cups, which was very annoying, and
Very bad.
servers were just horrific. This goes for all Chapter 4 seasons, but we'll come back to a big one in this later. Servers were awful, and server
So
performance in
bad.
particular felt like you're playing on like 50 plus ping to
Yeah,
whatever you would
true.
normally, which was really, really bad. So for meta, I'm giving this a solid like 5 out of 10 because 4 out of 10 because of Shockwave Hammers. Enjoyment, I think a lot of people enjoyed this.
I miss when me and Reese agreed, man. He doesn't want fun anymore. Nah, I get it. I think, you know what this is? You can also tell Reese's perspective is very heavily from playing now. I get I'm still watching, but I just like a bit more chaos. I want a bit more fun. I want something, dude. I don't want everyone just running constantly. Give us some mobility. Give us something. I feel like if we just got these plain metas for the last 5 years, this game would be so dead. I don't know. I don't know. I genuinely think the people who want like no fun items in the game, I think the game would be dead if they were in control, truly.
Even though the meta was really bad, I actually think this was still quite
I loved
enjoyable
playing this season.
so
I played this season.
Tournaments were pretty good. I think the Victory Cash Cups allowed you to
I
make good
competed
money,
this
and
season.
the divisional cups were good. FNCS was on. There was a qualifying path to get to the FNCS Global Championships at the end of the year. So I'm going to give tournaments a 7 as well. Now, I think a lot of people would enjoy this season as well, so I'm going to go back to a 6. Next season, Chapter 4, Season 2. Now, this was the Kinetic Blade season, which was really good meta for some of it. Now, this season, it was really hit or miss. Like, some parts were really good and other parts were really bad. Let's start off with some of the cool things they added, which was mid-game objectives. So the first one being Loot Island was added this season, and there was also the combat caches that were added. Now, I still think combat caches are really probably the most balanced mid-game objective. Please get the bunkers out. Just give us combat caches again. I think they're really, really good. Unfortunately, you know, they added these slurp juices with these, the buffed slurp juices, which were really broken, and you could get them from the combat caches or from Loot Island as well, which I just think they were just a little bit too
OP.
No, they're not a little bit too overpowered. They were way too overpowered. And as soon as you were fighting someone who popped one, it became incredibly frustrated. There was also the overclocked pulse rifle, which you got from Loot Island, which was insanely broken.
So OP.
Heal off this season was so bad because of the reality of pizza time.
Pizza time and flopper bases.
And you could just infinitely heal. You had slurp juices, you had med mists. A lot of Chapter 4 came down to tons of laggy heal offs, which was incredibly annoying. Same thing at the end of the season, they also added the ODM gears.
This is when heal offs were kind of like fresh though,
for solo cash cups and for dual cash cups towards the end of the season. So
the ODM gear was bad.
Meta this season, not great for a lot of it, but like those were all the additional things. The stuff like the kinetic blades, the rifle, the AR shotgun meta, like those were really good. A lot of the additional things
Havoc was a bit too strong. The Havoc shotgun was a bit too strong.
Because of the kinetic blades not being shockwave hammers, I'm still going to give it a 6 on the meta. Enjoyment, I'm going to give it a 6 as well. Tournaments, I'm also just going to give it a 7, the same as the previous season. And now I'm going to give it a 6 as well, the same as the previous season. I did really like the map changes that were added in this season, though. I've got to say, like Mega City and the whole kind of southeast biome that was there. Chapter 4, Season 3's meta, not that great. It had the slurp plants, which basically encouraged a lot of surge
Pistol
trading.
was really
the
OP.
middle map was cool. I like that. The way you could go around the vines or whatever it was called was pretty awesome. I like the mudsliding added, but the flapjack rifle, 45 bullets, you could just spam it at people, was kind of just frustrating because they just never stopped pressuring you. You could never heal. Mammoth pistol meant you just kept getting headshotted for massive damage all the time. It was annoying. Slurp juices still in, not nerfed, and the flare gun was also very, very annoying. Tournaments kind of stayed the same as previous as well, which was really good. There was a good level of consistency there, which was awesome. But yeah, servers were just also completely awful too.
So bad.
Solid 5.
The servers were so bad in this season.
Tournaments, same as before, 7. Now, I think we also give it a 6 for the now. Chapter 4, Season 4. Now, this meta was interesting. The Twin Mag AR was kind of like the Red Eye from Season 1, but not as broken, I would say. It was, if you had good aim, like you were just frying people with the Twin Mag AR.
It's because it still had the hip fire capability that made it really strong,
especially since it was a crash pad meta where people just crash pad and you could just beam them out of the sky. But the main issue here was this was peak lag.
The lag was the worst
Global Championships. This was one of the laggiest tournaments, maybe the laggiest tournament to date,
dude.
I've ever seen.
We watched a whole LAN like this. Like it was just so like that LAN could have been so good and it just ruined it.
That's not true. The Red Bull event that I went to in this season last year was the laggiest event. So yeah, not great. No FNCS, but the FTS Global Championship was held, which is awesome. For the meta, I'm giving this a 6, mainly because they added forecast towers, which I hate. Unfortunately, they're incredibly frustrating. I think this was an enjoyable season. I'm giving it a 7. Tournaments, I'm going to have to give this a 5. Even though the Global Championship was there, the lag made this unbearable. And I'm giving this a 2 on now. Actually, maybe a 3 on now. Let's be real. The lag, if any player goes back and watches tournaments from this chapter, trust me, you don't want to play tournaments in that kind of lag. It was genuinely horrific. Chapter 4 OG season that we're seeing.
Tournaments didn't run,
this is a complicated one because the meta was really all over the place. It was like a 4-week, month-ish long season where the meta just continually changed with every single update every week that was out. So it's difficult to say what the metas were, but for the most part, they weren't that great, I would say. On average, I would give these like a 5. There was a lot of mobility, a lot of kind of explosives that were in there too. It was really difficult to get shields because they were incredibly rare, which was very frustrating. So I'm giving that a 5.
Oh yeah, you never got
this
meds.
Is a solid 2
that.
out of 10 for tournaments because it was all open tournaments, no 2-round tournaments, and they were all just full of cheaters. It was just cheaters all the time in this, and honestly, it felt like a real regression of the game for
Does
OG.
he remember like the cash cups just didn't work either? Like it was like, I think I got on, I went to stream maybe 5 of 6 solo cash cups. I literally woke up and went to stream and 5 of 6 just didn't work. Like you'd get up ready to get on and they would just break and everyone would wait around and they'd cancel them. Like it was so bad.
In that sense. Enjoyment, I'm going to give it a solid 7 because despite the tournaments not being that good, it was still just nostalgic and fun to play in the OG season regardless. Now, would people go back and play this again? Probably not. They probably enjoy the nostalgia of it, but not necessarily actually the tournament aspect because they were pretty bad. So I'm going to give this a 5. Moving on to Chapter 5, Season 1.
Chapter 5.
Now, this season introduced a lot of interesting meta changes.
I love this season. This season was so good.
Walk whilst using medkits or big pots, which made heal off kind of frustrating because what this meant was that medkits slowly gradually went up over time. So now you can actually heal off not just with med mist and slurps and floppers, but now medkits in particular.
But see how they're still fighting at this point because we had infinite mobility, but everyone was promoted to fight. It was heal off, but it was like popping a medkit, then fighting and popping a medkit. It wasn't just in Narnia popping 6 in a row. I feel like the heal off wasn't that bad this season. I actually think this season the heal off, like I know the medkit change started the terrible heal off, but because of other factors of the meta, it wasn't as bad yet.
Very, very important for heal off. And this was a lot of what happened in Chapter 5 Season 1. They did also add bullet drop, which I know a lot of people really don't like and they want hit scan weapons, but for competitive, bullet drop, in my opinion, is absolutely the right decision because some of the issues that I've already mentioned in the previous seasons with hit scan weapons being too easy to use when you look down the scope are completely negated by the fact with bullet drop. So I think bullet drop, good change for competitive all around. I know a lot of people don't like it though. So this season added weapon mods, which I think, to be honest, has been done pretty poorly throughout the entire year. I think weapon mods should have been able to just be moddable without a mod bench, but in season 1 they just added mod benches inside vaults that were inside of the mythic POIs. Now these mythic POIs gave you a mythic weapon, but also gave you a medallion, which gave you infinitely recharging shield.
Strong.
And the more medallions that you got, the more shield and the faster that it would actually give you. So I really didn't like the fact that there was like 4 incredibly strong drop spots on the map all at once that give you massive advantages. If you've watched any of my videos, you know I'm not a fan of medallions. So the meta was really annoying, but I think bullet drop off and the rest of the weapons generally were pretty well balanced outside of the auto shotgun, which was really obviously a bit too strong. So for meta, I'm going to give this a 6. For enjoyment, I'm going to give this a 7.
Like an 8.
For tournaments, similar to all the other seasons where you just really have solid tournaments that lead up into an FNC's Global Championship, so I'm giving it a 7. Now, would people go back and enjoy this? Probably yes.
Yeah, I think they would.
Not that bad of a season, so I'm also giving it a 7. Chapter 5, Season 2. Now, this
meta
is
for
the
Chapter 5 Season 1
season, which was a very odd season competitively because similarly, the medallions ran supreme. In particular, of course, you had the agility medallion, which was Cerberus's medallion, which famously Peterbot and Poyo ran through the whole lobby with. Now, there's a lot of frustrating things in this season, like the Thunderbolt of Zeus, you had the Chains of Hades, and there was also a DMR meta where they added the DMR and also water bending towards really bad as well. So there was a
water bending. I already forgot about this.
Boring surge meta, and the fighting meta was kind of boring because of the Chains of Hades. Which
I forgot how good the chains were.
Objectives were bunkers, which are really not well designed in my opinion whatsoever, and much rather have combat caches instead. And again, weapon mods are just still kind of pointless because now those weapon mod things are in bunkers rather than being in the mythic drop spots.
This is bad.
They did add the wings last second, which was really cool, but they were out for almost the entire season because they were so bugged. So many tournaments were bugged as well. It introduced the worst and most annoying shotgun of all time, which was the Gatekeeper. So for meta, I'm giving this a 4. For enjoyment, I think it was fun to play. I'm going to give it a 6. Tournaments, same as always. We're getting a 7. And now, would people enjoy this to play back?
5.
Probably not. DMR meta was incredibly boring. So I'm going to give this a 4. We're almost done. Chapter 5, Season 3.
Oh, God, Nitro.
1. Let me just list everything wrong with this season, okay? Nitro Fists, Surge Trading in Plants, cheaters in every tournament. The Nitro Fists, I already mentioned that, but I'm saying it again. The exploits where people are flying into the sky. The infinite healing cactuses that got nerfed towards the end. Gatekeepers, which I mentioned previously as well. Meta changes 1 or 2 days before Grands. The infinite exploding bow that was in the start of the season.
Infinite
you
bow.
get randomly kicked out of games for no reason. There's an auto reload bug. There's a coin that gives you infinite nitro where you can just run into everyone's box. Nuka-Cola means you could just heal infinitely. There was also a fall damage bug with a bunch of nitro as well. I could keep going. There's a lot wrong with this season.
-1.
Hate it. Hate it. Oh, they removed region lock. So yeah, tournaments, I'm going to give this a 3. Meta 1, enjoyment 1, now 1. In case you're wondering, that will be
1-1-3-1. Fair, honestly. And I think this is his best take so far. I don't think anyone disagrees with this.
the worst season of all time. Just nothing compares at all. And finally, the current season, Chapter 5, Season 4. I really like this season. I will say.
I knew he would. I knew he was gonna like season because it's just there's no mobility. It's plain Jane. This is the vanilla of seasons. So I knew Reese was gonna love it.
Best metas we've had. The mythics this season feel much more balanced. None of them are really like super broken and worth landing on. Medallions also feel way more balanced. The only one that's really broken is the scan coin, which comes from the raft, which basically the wall hack coin that repeatedly scans players around you. That one is incredibly broken and it's really annoying to fight. But overall, I think the rest of the meta is nowhere near as bad. I'm going to give this a solid 8 for the meta as well. Enjoyment, I'm also going to give this an 8 on enjoyment. I think this is a really enjoyable season all around.
I think the shotgun meta was different.
I'm going to have to go with an 8 as well. Global Championships this year, which was really good. Cash Cups are super solid. They're attempting reload cups, which aren't really working that well, but there's a lot of potential in them, which are cool. Now, well, I mean, now is kind of irrelevant because this is now, so I'm going to give this the same as the enjoyment, which is also 8. Now, let's see the overall scores. What is the lowest and the worst season overall? I'm finding out at the same time as you. Unsurprisingly, Chapter 5 Season 3, worst competitive season of all time.
Which is
Nobody
the best.
here is shocked whatsoever.
Is right now the best?
Second worst is Chapter 3 Season 1. I know the casuals won't be happy about that. And then Chapter 1 Season 6, which again started competitive. There wasn't much in it.
Fair enough.
Followed by Chapter 2 Season 6, Primal Season. So not unsurprising. The highest. Ooh, we have a tie for first and second. All right, coming in at number 3 is Chapter 1, Season 9. The World Cup season. Basically heavily carried. That's so funny. I had a 3 out of 10 for the meta.
Yeah, I was about to say, we gave this season 3 out of 10 for the meta, but it's the best season of all time, apparently.
But because enjoyment and tournaments were 10 out of 10, and now is 9 out of 10, that's managed to make it all the way up to third.
This is where I disagreed on him, where I don't think prize pool carries this hard. Like, I think people think prize pool carries this hard, but at the end of the day, people know they're queuing up with 99.9% of them not making money. Just because the pros make more money doesn't mean other people are going to enjoy it more. So I disagree with he gave these really good play now ratings when I feel like they probably shouldn't have.
That's incredible. I can't believe that. Coming in second place,
like, I don't even agree with my own decision.
But I'm giving it to the other season, is Chapter 2 Season 1. Where actually tied with first, but I'm giving it to the other season, is Chapter 2 Season 1. Where we had an incredibly good meta. Everything was really well balanced. Nothing was really too broken.
You take 10,000 people right now who either hardly play comp or play a lot of comp or love comp or watch comp or don't even know what comp is, and you ask them what the best seasons of all time, 3 of them max are saying Chapter 2 Season 1. Like, this was just on every metric according to everyone not the best season.
No mobility, and it was squads which fit well. I can't believe a squad season's gone this high. But most importantly,
he doesn't even
heavily
believe his
carried by the prizing this season. 4 weekly qualifiers for FNCS. DreamHack LAN. We had Winter Royale duos, which is $23 million.
It's Winter Royale.
The only reason this probably wasn't a little higher is because the enjoyment was a little low rating because it was such a long season. But number 1, Chapter 1, Season 8.
I can agree with this.
Started the World Cup.
I can agree with this, sorry.
Weeks 1 to 4. ESL Katowice Royale. You know, meta was still pretty
I can agree with this.
Only a 6 out of 10 meta, but enjoyment, tournaments, and now were some of the highest ratings possible that you could get. Now, let me know which ones you are. I know everyone else disagrees with these.
I can agree with that win.
My rankings. You can click this video right here to see me ranking every single shotgun.
We watched this video too. This is a good video.
Which is the worst.
I can agree with the end. I agree with the end. I think, I think Reese is just kind of having the prize money carries his opinion a lot.